Imagine stepping out into the freezing, breathless darkness of the ancient American frontier. You are a pioneer, one of the very first human beings to ever set foot on this isolated continent. Armed with nothing but a stone-tipped spear and the flickering wooden fire torch, you have survived a brutal migration across the ice. You believe you are the ultimate survivor. You have mastered fire, and you believe you are at the absolute top of the food chain. But as the bitter wind howls through the prehistoric trees, the shadows just beyond the reach of your firelight begin to shift. The forest goes completely, terrifyingly silent. And then you hear it. The heavy, rhythmic crunch of massive footsteps breaking the snow crust. A deep, guttural, vibrating growl begins to rumble in the dark, a sound so low and powerful that you can actually feel it vibrating inside your own chest. In that heart-stopping moment, you realize a horrifying truth. You are not the apex predator here. You have just trespassed into the hunting grounds of a 1,000-pound biological weapon. As the orange torchlight flickers, it catches two massive, glowing, predatory eyes in the dark. And then, the light reflects off two horrific 12-inch blood-stained bone blades curving out of the shadows. The beast steps into the light. It is impossibly massive. It does not fear your fire. It does not fear your spear. This is the ultimate king of the Ice Age Americans, history's most perfect assassin. And tonight, it is hunting you. Welcome to Primal Dominion.
Echoes of Extinction.
When we think of the ultimate feline predator, our modern minds drift to the African lion, or perhaps the Siberian tiger, magnificent creatures weighing anywhere from 400 to 600 pounds. They command absolute respect. But if you placed a full-grown male lion next to the beast that once ruled the ancient American hemisphere, the lion would look like a frightened house cat. Most of us know the famous fossils pulled from the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles. That creature was Smilodon fatalis, a lethal, wolf-sized predator that terrorized North America for tens of thousands of years. But what most people do not realize is that the California saber-tooth was just the prototype. A rough draft. Nature's first attempt at something far, far worse. Roughly 3 million years ago, a geological event changed the Earth forever. The land bridge of Panama rose from the ocean, connecting North and South America for the very first time. In an event scientists call the Great American Biotic Interchange, the elite predators of the North crossed into a completely isolated alien world. And what they found there forced them to become something monstrous. But here is the question that will haunt the rest of this story. If this animal was the most perfectly engineered killing machine in Earth's history, why did it carry a fatal built-in flaw that could end its life in a single second? Stay with us. The answer will change how you see this creature entirely. In this new environment, surrounded by the most heavily armored prey on the entire planet, the saber-tooth was forced into a violent evolutionary arms race. And nature's solution was extreme gigantism. The North American predator became an entirely new, terrifying variant, Smilodon Populator. Standing nearly 4 feet at the shoulder, it reached a staggering weight of nearly 1,000 pounds. Think about that for a moment. The exact size of a modern polar bear, but packed entirely into the hyperlethal, muscular frame of an ambush feline. It remains, to this very day, the heaviest and most heavily muscled cat to ever walk this earth. But it was not just its immense weight that made it deadly. It was exactly how that weight was biologically engineered. Every pound was a weapon. Every muscle had a purpose. Picture a cheetah in full sprint. That long whip-crack spine, those hollow, elegant bones built for pure speed. That is the cat you know. Graceful, frantic, burning through distance like a lit fuse. Smilodon Populator was the exact opposite in every possible way. Its lower back was short and heavily braced, not a spine built to flex and sprint, but a rigid platform built to absorb the shock of controlling something 3 times its own size. Its hind legs were relatively compact. It had no stamina worth mentioning. If a prehistoric horse spotted it and bolted, the saber-tooth simply watched it go. It did not need to run, because it was never going to chase you. If you had found a fossil of its foreleg bones without knowing what animal they belonged to, you would have assumed you were looking at a grizzly bear. Dense, impossibly thick bone, muscle attachments so pronounced you could feel the raised ridges with your fingers. Its forearms completely dwarfed its hindquarters, a biological paradox, a bear's arms on a cat's body. Imagine the sheer kinetic force living inside those limbs. Imagine being on the receiving end of them. Its entire frame was engineered for one singular, violent purpose: to explode from the shadows in a single leap, lock those grisly arms around something enormous, and drag it violently into the dirt. Not to kill with speed, to kill with total, overwhelming, inescapable control. And once you were pinned beneath 1,000 pounds of prehistoric muscle, the real weapon came out. The 12-inch canine teeth are the most iconic weapons in the history of paleontology. They look like indestructible biological swords. But they were hiding a deadly, paradoxical secret. We call them biological weapons. In reality, they were glass daggers. Devastatingly sharp along their trailing edges, yes, but terrifyingly brittle from side to side. And modern biomechanical studies have revealed something even more shocking. Smilodon actually had a relatively weak bite force compared to a modern lion or jaguar. Its jaw muscles were biologically sacrificed, reduced in size to make room for the massive roots of those giant fangs. This created a horrifying evolutionary trap. If the saber-tooth bit wildly into the thrashing, armored spine of a giant sloth, if the prey twisted even slightly during the strike, the lateral force would snap those 12-inch blades clean off. And in the brutal reality of the Ice Age, a cat with broken fangs was already dead. Not quickly, slowly, through starvation, through infection, through weeks of increasingly desperate, failed hunts as the broken roots rotted in the jaw. The most fearsome weapon in prehistoric history was also its owner's greatest vulnerability. One wrong move, one moment of impatience. That was all it took. Therefore, this 1,000-pound monster could not afford to be a careless, brawling fighter. It had to execute the flawless, tactical precision of a surgeon. It would use its massive grizzly bear arms to completely immobilize its prey, using 1,000 pounds of sheer gravity to hold the terrified animal absolutely still against the earth. Only then, driven by incredibly thick, heavily muscled neck vertebrae, would it open its jaws to an impossible 120 degrees, nearly double the maximum gape of a modern lion. It would then deliver a slow, precise, devastating strike directly into the soft tissue of the throat. The fangs acted like a dual meat shear, cleanly severing the jugular vein and the windpipe in a single guillotine motion, deliberately bypassing the bone entirely. The hunt was over in seconds. Calculated, silent, flawlessly deadly. To understand the terrifying power behind this grappling assassin, we have to look at what it was hunting. Smilodon Populator did not waste its energy reserves chasing small deer. It hunted biological tanks. Its primary targets were giant ground sloths and heavily armored glyptodons. These were not the slow, harmless tree dwellers we know today. These were 3,000-pound titans, armed with massive scythe-like claws and skin reinforced by thousands of tiny bone plates. Natural chainmail covering a living fortress. Imagine standing in the dark woods, looking up at a creature the size of a modern car. Its claws are longer than your forearm. It outweighs a compact truck. And somewhere in the dark trees behind it, a 1,000-pound cat is preparing to drag it to the ground. The saber-tooth would stalk silently through dense foliage, waiting for the massive herbivore to lower its head to feed. Then, with a terrifying burst of kinetic energy, it would launch itself onto the sloth's back, wrapping those grizzly bear forearms around a neck the width of a tree trunk, fighting against 3,000 pounds of panicked, thrashing muscle, actively avoiding claws that could disembowel it in a single swipe. It was not hunting. It was going to war. Every single time it needed to eat. For millions of years, this ultimate assassin ruled without challenge. But roughly 15,000 years ago, the ultimate clash of species took place. Human pioneers had survived the brutal, freezing journey across the Bering Land Bridge. They pushed through the North American ice sheets and expanded into the uncharted, primeval territories of South America. These early humans were elite, battle-hardened survivors. They had hunted mammoths, they had mastered fire. But as they ventured deeper into the jungle and the high mountain passes, they were walking directly into an active war zone. Imagine the sheer psychological terror of those early nights on the frontier. When the sun went down, humanity violently fell from the top of the food chain. If this cat had the biomechanical strength to wrestle a prehistoric biological tank to the ground, a 150-pound human was nothing more than an effortless, fragile snack. A spear thrust had to perfectly pierce through inches of dense hide and thick muscle just to reach a vital organ. Against a 1,000-pound cat, a minor spear wound would only enrage it. But the saber-tooth? It only needed one swipe of its massive bear-like claws to shatter a human's ribcage. Or one surgical bite in the dark to end a life. The fossil record is entirely clear. Humans did not conquer this beast in hand-to-hand combat. They survived it through extreme paranoia, the protection of large tribes, and the relentless, desperate use of massive bonfires. If you were a pioneer and your fire went out in the deep woods of the Pleistocene, you did not live to see the dawn. But if Smilodon Populator was the perfect biological weapon, why isn't it stalking the forests of the Americas today? The answer lies in the tragedy of extreme evolution. Roughly 10,000 years ago, the Earth began to warm faster than biology could respond. The Pleistocene was ending, and the massive, slow-moving megafauna that the saber-tooth had spent millions of years evolving to hunt, the giant sloths, the ancient horses, the armored giants, could not survive the changing climate and the relentless pressure of coordinated human hunting. One by one, they vanished. Suddenly, the greatest predator in the Western Hemisphere awoke to a world where its food source was simply gone. The only prey left were smaller, faster animals. Modern deer, guanacos, quick, open country runners built for the new, warm, expanding grasslands.
But remember the chassis. Remember those grizzly bear arms, that rigid, braced spine, that 1,000-pound frame that could stop 3,000 pounds of panicked sloth, but could not sprint across an open plain. Its greatest evolutionary triumph had become its extinction sentence. And so, the king did not go out in a blaze of fire. It did not fall to a human spear. There was no dramatic final battle. The most powerful cat that ever lived simply grew hungry, and then more hungry. And then, somewhere in the shadows of the ancient South American wilderness, it laid down for the last time, perfectly evolved for a world that no longer existed, and utterly unable to survive the one that had replaced it.